Which airline has the best loyalty program for points and miles people? In the spirit of March Madness, I made a bracket to help us find the answer. So let's jump right in. In the spirit of March Madness, I have put together a bracket of 16 different frequent flyer programs to determine which one is the best. So here's how this is going to work in today's video. Instead of region, I've split the bracket up by alliance. We have 4 programs from Star Alliance, 4 programs from oneworld, 4 programs from SkyTeam, and 4 programs that are unaffiliated, which means they're not in any particular airline alliance. Representing the Star Alliance, we have Air Canada, ANA, which is known for its round-the-world flight redemptions, United Airlines, and LifeMiles. Star Alliance is the largest alliance. There are 26 different airlines in here, and clearly not all of them are going to be in this bracket. If you think that any of the airlines were robbed, where you're like, oh my gosh, Turkish Airlines deserves to be in here, let me know in the comments. But with that, representing SkyTeam, we have Flying Blue, which is Air France and KLM. We have Virgin Atlantic, Delta, and Aeromexico. Representing oneworld, we've got the Avios programs, which includes British Airways, Aer Lingus, Qatar, Finnair, and Iberia. We've got Qantas, American Airlines, and Alaska Airlines. And representing the non-alliance airlines, we have Emirates, Etihad, Southwest, and JetBlue. To determine which loyalty program is the best, we are going to go through 4 rounds, and they are not like basketball games where it's all the same game. The 4 rounds are going to involve 4 different categories, and the first one is the number of codeshare partners that each airline has. If you're not familiar with what a codeshare is, a codeshare flight is a flight operated by one airline, which is the operating airline, but it's marketed and sold by another airline, which is known as the marketing carrier. So for example, a codeshare partnership might be like the one between JetBlue and Qatar, because you can buy Qatar flights with JetBlue points through JetBlue's website. If you're just getting started with points and miles and looking to level up quickly, check out our free Points and Miles 101 course at geobreezetravel.com/free course. Okay, which airlines do you think have the most codeshare partners? Let's dive in and see. All right, let's dive into the round 1 matches, which is based off of the number of codeshare partners. I do want to clarify, this doesn't mean that you can book all of these codeshares with points or that they're all good deals. This is purely for round 1, just how many different partners do they have listed on their website. So first up, we have Air Canada versus ANA. Air Canada has a total of 52 codeshare partners listed on their website. Here on this webpage, Air Canada has listed all of the different partners with the Aeroplan program, where they feature different partners like United, Lufthansa, Emirates, but they have so many more. Some of these are easier to book with points than others, like for example, there's quite a bit of availability with Air India if you're just looking to book for one person, but Air New Zealand is really difficult to find availability for. But if we scroll through all of these different partners listed on the website, we will find that they have listed 52 different partners. With ANA, if we look up all of their codeshare partners on their site, they have the usual Star Alliance ones, plus a few others outside of Star Alliance as well. For example, they partner with Etihad, Eurowings, Philippine Airlines, SAS, and a few more. But for this round, Air Canada takes the win with a score of 52 versus 37. Next up, we have United versus LifeMiles. United takes the win here with a total score of 41 codeshare partners. On United's website, they've listed out all of their codeshare partners: Aegean, Air Canada, ANA, Austrian, Lat Polish, Egypt Air, Thai, Turkish Airlines, as well as non-Star Alliance partners like Aer Lingus, Azul, Discover Airlines, JSX, Hawaiian Airlines, and a few more. Again, not all of these are easily bookable with points on United's website. This is just based off of how many different airline partners they have listed. If we look at the LifeMiles website for all of the different partners with Avianca, they've listed out 29 partners where they have the 26 Star Alliance airlines. And then also they've listed out partnerships with GOL, Iberia, and Click. So in this first round, United has beat out LifeMiles with a total score of 41 versus 29. And so here's our updated bracket, where the 2 teams from Star Alliance that have advanced to the next round are Air Canada and United. Now let's go over to oneworld. In this first round, we have the Avios program versus Qantas. Now, this might not be completely apples to apples fare because Avios does have 5 different airlines within its loyalty program. We also need to subtract a lot of the double counting because they have so many different airlines that are codeshare partners with multiple airlines within the Avios program. British Airways just listed out the Oneworld members, and they didn't make it really easy to find other non-alliance transfer partners, so I just gave them a score of 13. With Iberia, they had the similar 13, but they also had a few other airlines that weren't listed. When I scroll through all of the Iberia partners, they had a total score of 21, but I'm going to subtract 13 from that for the double counting. With Aer Lingus, they have 8 partners listed here. Technically, some of these are outside of the Avios programs like Alaska and United and JetBlue, where they have different codeshare partners with Aer Lingus, but not the other ones. But since this was less than 13, I'm not going to keep double counting that, so I'm just going to put Aer Lingus at 0, even though there are a couple more codeshare partners. Let me know if you think the methodology is really messed up, but in the end, Avios is going to beat Qantas by quite a bit, so it doesn't really swing the results too much. Qatar has listed all of their different partners by region, where they have Asia Pacific partners, they've got European partners, they've got Middle Eastern partners, so a lot of different partners listed out on the Qatar website as well. And then Finnair has just listed out the different 13 global airlines in their alliance, which is a complete double counting of what's going on with British Airways. So I put their total score at 42. With Qantas, this was not exactly user-friendly for me to do a count of all of their different partnerships for the purpose of this video, but they have it broken up by region, where you can look at partners that fly to Australia, to South Pacific, to Asia, to Europe, to North America, so on and so forth. And if I go through and count the unique number of different codeshare partners here, they have a total score of 14. I think the most notable one was Air Tahiti Nui. But with that first round, Avios definitely took the win with a lot more codeshare partner availability versus Qantas, so they are advancing into the next round. For the next round of American Airlines versus Alaska, American Airlines had a total score of 21, with notable partners like Air Tahiti Nui, Etihad, and JetBlue that you can book through American Airlines, but Alaska has 24. And I know this round is purely just based off of the number of codeshare partners they have listed on their website, but Alaska, I would say, has much better, or at least more interesting, airline partners that you can book with. For example, a fan favorite is Starlux Airlines, which you can book through Alaska. You could book Iceland Air through their program, Oman Air, Korean Air. There's so many different sweet spots that you can book through Alaska. So for this round of codeshare partners, American Airlines versus Alaska Airlines is the winner and advances to the next round. Now let's take a look at SkyTeam. In the first round, we have Flying Blue, Air France KLM versus Virgin Atlantic. And when they go head-to-head on which one has more codeshare partners, the winner is Air France KLM Flying Blue. They have a total score of 52, whereas Virgin Atlantic had a total score of 35. Air France has an interesting interface where you have to select the partner airline in this window, and as I share my screen, you're not able to see all of these different airlines, but there are 52 that you can choose from, with some of them being airlines that I have not heard of before, so they're not all bookable with points, but they do have quite a few partnerships in here. Whereas Virgin Atlantic has 35 different airlines listed on their page. Some of their codeshare partners include the typical ones from SkyTeam, but also airlines like Air New Zealand, El Al, LATAM, which is no longer an alliance partner. They've listed Singapore Airlines as a partnership as well, WestJet, Saudia. So a lot of good partnerships with Virgin Atlantic, but Air France is going to take the win on this one and advance into the next round. The next round for SkyTeam is going to be Delta versus Aeromexico. Aeromexico is going to take the win here, but not by much. On Delta's website, on their partnership page, they've only listed 8 different partners here. They've got Air France, KLM, which you could argue is the same airline, Virgin Atlantic, China Eastern, Korean Air, Aeromexico, LATAM, and WestJet. And Aeromexico has listed out Aerolíneas Argentina, Air France, Europa, ITA, China Eastern, Delta, Garuda Indonesia, KLM, and Korean Air. So it's a super close round with not a lot of points scored, but Aeromexico does squeak out the win and move on to the next round in the bracket. Now, let's talk about the non-alliance partners. First up, we have Emirates versus Etihad. And here, Emirates takes the win with a total score of 31 codeshare partners listed on their website. On their travel partners website, they've listed different airlines like Fly Dubai, Qantas, United, Air Canada, Aegean, Air Baltic, so many different airlines listed here. Whereas with Etihad's page, they've listed out different airlines like Air Canada, Air Europa, American Airlines, El Al, JetBlue, Oman, and a few more. Emirates is going to take the win here because they have more partners listed. However, qualitatively, it's actually easier to find award space for a lot of the partners with Etihad. With Emirates, I'm almost always just booking with Emirates, but for the heuristics of how this round works, Emirates is going to take the win. So they're going to advance in the bracket. If you're enraged by this and you're like, oh my god, Etihad was robbed, let me know in the comments if you don't agree with the methodology, but Emirates is going to advance into the next round for the purposes of this video. And the last match in round 1 is going to be Southwest versus JetBlue. Now, I think we all know who's going to win this one, because Southwest has a total score of 2, where with Southwest, you could use those points to book on Southwest flights, or going forward, they have announced their first interline partner, which is Iceland Air. So there's not a lot going on with Southwest. It is obviously going to be the lowest score that we see in round 1, so they're knocked out. Whereas JetBlue doesn't have a ton of different airline partners, but still enough to make it pretty interesting. You can use them to book with Etihad, Hawaiian Airlines, Iceland Air, Qatar, and a few more. So JetBlue takes the win there, and this is what our bracket looks like going into round 2. And for round 2, the score is going to be based on the number of credit card transfer partners for each of these loyalty programs. If you like this type of content, please let me know. Click that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for even more points and miles tips every week. Now, let's dive into which of these airline programs make it easy to transfer in points from different credit cards. All right, let's get ready for round 2, where we are going to put some different loyalty programs head to head based on the number of credit card transfer partners that they have. Here's what our bracket looks like right now, where we're looking for the Star Alliance champion between Air Canada and United, the SkyTeam champion between Flying Blue and Aeromexico, the One World champion between Avios and Alaska, and the non-alliance champion between Emirates and JetBlue. Also, as brackets do, these are going to start going faster and faster because we only have 4 head-to-head matches for this round 2, whereas we had 8 with round 1. So first up, we have Air Canada versus United. Air Canada has a total score of 4, beating out United with a total score of 2. With Air Canada, you can transfer points in from Amex, Bilt, Capital One, or Chase. Pretty much everything other than Citi. With United, you can only transfer in points from Bilt or Chase. P.S. One of my favorite free tools whenever I'm trying to remind myself who transfers where is this page by upgraded points, where you can just select the transfer partner and then select the airline you want to transfer to, for example, Air Canada Aeroplan, and it will show you all of the different transfer partners. For this round 2, I'm only counting if it's a transfer partner with Amex, Bilt, Capital One, Citi, or Chase. I don't count the Marriott ones because oftentimes the transfer ratio is terrible, the transfer time is terrible, and I don't recommend moving Marriott points into different frequent flyer programs. I'm also ignoring Brex because most people don't really use them and the ratios are really weird. Most of the time it's 1.67 to 1. And I have also excluded the Wells Fargo rewards from the count and the scores in this round, but let me know if you would like for me to include the Wells Fargo rewards as a transfer partner going forward. These transfer over to programs like Aer Lingus, Avianca, British Airways, Choice at a 1-to-2 rate, Air France KLM Flying Blue, Iberia, Virgin Atlantic, and Virgin Red. But for the round of Air Canada versus United, when it comes to credit card transfer partners, Air Canada is going to take the win there, and they are the Star Alliance champion for this bracket. Let me know in the comments if you think there's another Star Alliance partner that's better than Air Canada. Up next, we have SkyTeam with Flying Blue versus Aeromexico. And here, Flying Blue is going to take the win because they swept the board. They are a transfer partner with all 5 of the transfer partners that we're looking at: Amex, Bilt, Capital One, Chase, and Citi. As a bonus, they are also a transfer partner with Wells Fargo. You can transfer Brex over to them, and you can transfer Marriott Bonvoy points over to them. But for the purposes of this bracket, they just take the maximum score of 5. Aeromexico has a total score of 3, where you can transfer Amex, Capital One, or Citi points over to Aeromexico. So Air France KLM Flying Blue advances. They are the champion of the SkyTeam Alliance. Let me know in the comments if you think a different Star Alliance partner should have taken the championship for Best Frequent Flyer Program and Loyalty Program. Next up, we have oneworld. And here we're looking at the Avios programs versus Alaska. And when it comes to credit card transfer partners, Avios is going to take the cake because there is almost always some way to get your transferable credit card points into the Avios program that you want. Award Wallet has a great article on how to do this where you can transfer your points between British Airways, Iberia, Qatar, Finnair, and Aer Lingus. Most of the time, this is just going to involve get whatever points you can into British Airways. And then from there, you can transfer it into any of the other Avios programs. When it comes to moving points into British Airways, you can move Amex, Bilt, Capital One, Chase, or Wells Fargo into British Airways. If you are in the rare camp where all you have are Citi thank you points and you don't know how to move those into British Airways, what you can do is move them into a different Avios partner first. For example, you could move your Citi points into Qatar, and then once they're in your Qatar account, you can move your Qatar points into your British Airways account and move them anywhere else that you need to from there. So with that versatility, Avios takes a total score of 5 for round 2. With Alaska, they have a score of 1.5. And that's because the only transferable currency that will move directly into Alaska is Bilt. But there is currently a workaround where you can move Amex points into Hawaiian Airlines and then transfer points from Hawaiian to Alaska. All you need to do here is Google transfer points from Hawaiian to Alaska, click on the first link which says redeem miles with ease, scroll down to transfer miles to Alaska's mileage program and then click learn more. And then you just need to sign into both your Hawaiian Airlines and your Alaska account and you can move points from Hawaiian to Alaska from there. But for this round, Avios takes the win and ends up winning the championship of the One World Alliance. Let me know in the comments if you think that Avios has the best loyalty program from the One World partners or if another one should have taken the win. And the last Alliance Championship we're going to talk about is the Non-Alliance Championship. Here we have Emirates versus JetBlue, and when it comes to credit card transfer partners, Emirates takes the win. They have a total score of 5 because they are partners with Amex, Bilt, Capital One, Citi, and Chase. You can move pretty much any type of transferable currency over to your Emirates account. JetBlue ends up with a total score of 3.4 because they're weird. Most of the points transfer over at a 1-to-1 rate. That means if you're transferring 1,000 points from Amex over to Emirates, you're going to end up with 1,000 Emirates points. But with JetBlue, the ratios are not quite that easy. Amex transfers over at a 1 to a 0.8 ratio. That means if you move 1,000 Amex points over to JetBlue, you just end up with 800 JetBlue points. So it's like the opposite of a transfer bonus. Capital One transfers over at a 5 to 3 rate, so that math is even weirder. Chase and Citi will both transfer at a 1-to-1 rate over to JetBlue, but once we take into account that some of these are not going to transfer at the full 1-to-1 rate, they end up with a total score of 3.4, so Emirates takes the win, and they are the champion of the non-alliance loyalty programs. So that's it for round 2. Next up, we are going to talk about round 3, which involves the ability to book good deals with these different programs. If you're in the market for a new card to earn more points and miles so that you can fly on these airlines, but you're not sure what card to get, check out our free credit card consultation form at geobreezetravel.com/consultations. I will personally respond to your request and send you some recommendations based on your particular travel goals, budget, and lifestyle. All right, let's jump into round 3, where we're going to talk about how easy is it to book good deals with these different champions of each of the different airline alliances. Once again, the maximum score that they can get in this round is 5. Here are the 5 categories I'm going to judge them on. First of all, do they partner with the different aggregator tools to make it easier to find award space? Do they have a 30-day calendar view on their own website? Do they require 2-factor authentication to search for deals? Because if so, that's annoying. So I'm going to give them a point if they do not require that. Can I easily find 4 or more seats on a business class flight with that airline? And is their website pretty easy to use? I really hate technology that requires a lot of deep breathing before, during, and after the user experience, so I'm going to give them a point for website usability. As a reminder, here's what the bracket looks like right now, where we have Air Canada as the champion of Star Alliance, Flying Blue as the champion of SkyTeam, Avios as the champion of oneworld, and Emirates as the champion of the non-alliance airlines. So first, let's talk about Air Canada versus Flying Blue. With Air Canada, I gave them a total score of 3. They do work with the different aggregators like Seats.Aero, Rome.travel, PointMe, and all of those, but they don't have a calendar on their own website. You have to search day by day in order to find good deals with Air Canada if you're not using the aggregator tools, so that's a bit annoying. Also, recently, they've required two-factor authentication whenever you want to find deals on Air Canada's website. It's super annoying because every time I want to just search for flight deals, even if I'm not booking anything, they have to send me a confirmation code in my email, and I don't love that. They do get a point for availability of award seats though, because it's pretty easy for families to book flights through Air Canada on different routes in business class, so they do get a point for having availability to book 4 or more seats. Outside of not having a calendar, their website is pretty user-friendly. And if you want full step-by-step tutorials with Air Canada, you can search for GeoBreeze Travel Air Canada on YouTube or click on this link in the top right and we will link to a tutorial video on Air Canada there. With Air France KLM Flying Blue, they took the win with a total score of 4.5. They do work with the different aggregators like Seats.Aero, Rome.travel, PointMe, all of those websites. And I almost wanted to give them bonus points for how nice their calendar is. Because on the Air France website, if you click on Book with Miles and search one way for the route that you want, leave the departure date blank, and then search for the number of people who are flying in business or economy, then you can go ahead and click Search Flights. And not only do they have a 30-day calendar view, but it's easy to click through and get the full year of calendar availability for award seats. So here I searched for Paris to Washington, D.C. in business class for 2 people, and it highlights in green all of the different dates where it's relatively cheap, that is 120,000 points for 2 people one way in business class with Air France. This makes it super easy to figure out when you should be taking your trip, and you don't have to click through day by day to find the best deals. They have half a point for not requiring two-factor authentication, because once in a while, Air France will log me out. I have to do two-factor authentication to get back in, but they do store my information a lot longer, so I only need to do this every 30 days or so, versus with Air Canada, I have to go through the confirmation code every single time I want to find a flight. It's super easy to find 4 or more seats with Air France, even in business class. On Seats.Aero, I'll usually just say minimum of 4 seats. And here I filtered from North America over to Europe and sorted by business class lowest. And so you can see there are a lot of different dates and a few different airports where you can fly for only 60,000 points per person one way in business class with Air France or KLM, and there's at least 4 seats available. So here there's 7 seats available on this day, 5 seats on this day, 9 seats from Edmonton over to Amsterdam on November 17. They have a lot of availability, so Air France is great if you are booking flights for a family or a large group. So they take the win here and advance into the finals. Now let's look at Avios versus Emirates. In the round of Avios versus Emirates, Emirates is going to take the win with a total score of 4, whereas Avios has a total score of 2.5. And that's because with 5 different loyalty programs and frequent flyer programs going on with the Avios ecosystem, for each of the 5 categories, some of them do better than others. For example, when it comes to working with aggregators, historically, the Avios programs did not work with aggregators, but some of them are starting to. Qatar Airways now works with Seats.Aero, Iberia now works with Rome.travel, and a few other ones are starting to make their way in there. British Airways still does not, Finnair still does not, so I'm giving them a score of 0.5. As far as calendar availability, once again, some of them have it, some of them don't. British Airways does, Iberia does not. For two-factor authentication, Qatar does require this, British Airways does not. As far as finding 4 or more seats, British Airways lets you do that pretty easily, Iberia does not. And as far as website UX goes, it varies pretty drastically across the 5 programs. So they get a total score of 2.5. With Emirates, they have a total score of 4. They work pretty easily with all of the different aggregator tools, so it's easy to find business class or even sometimes first class availability. As far as having a 30-day calendar, Emirates does not have a 30-day calendar, but they do have a 7-day calendar, which is better than nothing. Like here's a random search that I did from Miami over to Bogota in April for one person in business class, and you can see that for this week, there is availability to fly in business class for 52.5 thousand Emirates miles plus $106 in taxes and fees any day this week. But since they don't have 30 days of availability to show all on one screen, they still get a 0 for that particular category. They don't require two-factor authentication when I'm just shopping around for flights or looking for flights for my clients, so I love that. And it's pretty easy to find 4 or more seats on the same flight, depending on the route. Also, their website is super easy to use. You just need to log in, click on Classic Rewards, search for your departure airport, and then your arrival airport. I recommend searching one way and saying plus or minus 3 days. Click on the date that you want to travel, how many people are traveling, and what class of service you want, then go ahead and click flights. And from there, it's super easy. So that means going into the championship round, we have Air France KLM Flying Blue versus Emirates. And the final round is going to be based off of sweet spots. So let's see which of these programs lets you book sweeter sweet spots with your points and miles. If you're interested in leveling up your points and miles game and getting even more free trips and upgrades, we have a couple of options for you. The first one is the GeoBreeze Travel Patreon. You can join starting at just $5 per month through patreon.com/GeoBreezeTravel. Each month, we prepare personalized, step-by-step tutorials for the routes that our members request. We also provide open forum group coaching. You can ask any questions that you have about points, miles, and credit cards in general, and we talk through some of the tips and tricks that I don't really mention on social media. And if you are looking to get even more free travel with points, and you are a business owner or individual who spends more than $100,000 per year on expenses, we typically save our clients somewhere between $30,000 and $60,000 of travel in the first 6 to 12 months of working with our one-on-one client team. If that sounds like something that you would be interested in, book a free intro chat with us at geobreezetravel.com/intro call to learn more. Okay, now it's time for the final championship where we compare the sweet spots of Flying Blue versus Emirates. These are two of the most popular programs that we use to book flights for our one-on-one clients. So let's see which one is the best overall airline program for making the most out of your points and miles. All right, let's jump into the final round between Air France KLM Flying Blue versus Emirates. And here we're going to judge them based off of the sweetness of their sweet spots. So first, let's go over what's a typical cents per point valuation that you could get from the normal business class redemptions that people do. With Air France KLM Flying Blue, the most common thing that people do with it is to fly from North America to either Amsterdam or France. So here I have filtered down to just the US airports where there is availability with at least 2 seats in business class, then sorted by the lowest business class price. Oftentimes you can fly for cheaper from Canada, but I'm just going to search from the US, and the best price that we can find for one person, one way in business class is 60,000 points per ticket. Now remember, you can move any type of points over to Air France to book this. Citi, Chase, Amex, Capital One, Bilt, all of them will transfer over. And on Air France's website, I searched for one of these routes. I'm going to use Washington, D.C. over to Amsterdam as an example. And here I found the 60,000 point price plus $332 in taxes and fees in order to book this business class flight to Amsterdam one way. When I checked for the price of the flight, if we were just paying for this out of money, for this one-way flight, it would be about $3,000. If we take the cash price of the flight and subtract out the taxes and fees, then divide all of that by the 60,000 points required, this gets us a cents per point valuation of about 4.5 cents per point for business class with Air France, and that's very typical of what we see whenever we book something like this for our clients. Now let's compare that to Emirates. One of the most popular things to do with Emirates points is actually not fly over to Dubai. For a lot of our clients, they like to use it to fly the Fifth Freedom route either from JFK over to Milan, Italy, or from Newark over to Athens, Greece. For one ticket one way in business class, this will cost you 87,000 points transferred over to Emirates, plus about $100 in taxes and fees. Like we mentioned in round 2, you can transfer over any type of flexible currency over to Emirates. Amex, Chase, Capital One, Citi, Bilt, they all transfer to Emirates, and 87,000 points will get you over to Europe in business class. I searched for a random week from Newark over to Athens on Emirates' website in November, and it looks like 6 out of 7 days this week they do have availability to fly in business class for 87,000 miles plus $106 in taxes and fees. The retail value of this particular flight would be about $3,281 if you were to just pay for it using money. So if we want to calculate the cents per point with that, we would just take the cash price minus the taxes and fees and then divide that by the 87,000 points that would be required to book this ticket. That gets us a cents per point valuation of 3.6 cents per point. That's pretty typical for what we see for clients. So as far as the typical cents per point you'll get for doing a business class flight, I would say it varies a little bit more for the Air France ones, but Air France tends to squeak out slightly higher cents per point valuations versus Emirates when it comes to business class redemptions to Europe. Now let's talk about region versatility. Can you use Air France, KLM, Flying Blue to fly almost anywhere in the world? And same question with Emirates? Not always. Obviously, we just showed that they both have great sweet spots over to Europe. But when we look at Air France, could you use that to fly from North America over to South America? They do have a few selected routes with sweet spots like Miami over to PTP for 25,000 points, but it's not that great of a sweet spot. Otherwise, you're going to be paying more than 100,000 points per person one way to fly to South America with this, so that's not something I would recommend. Could you use Flying Blue to fly over to Africa? Yes, this is one of the best sweet spots for Africa I found, is to use the Flying Blue program. Some of the sweet spots would be to go into Morocco or Tunisia or anywhere else, especially in Northern Africa, and this tends to be how we recommend clients go to Kenya for safaris as well. Could you use the Flying Blue program to fly into Asia? Yes, depending on where you want to go in Asia. There's a lot of stuff over into Tel Aviv, and we've also been able to use this program to book clients into the Far East, like with Haneda or Hong Kong or Incheon. This will typically run you about 115,000 points per person one way in business class, and oftentimes it will go the long way around the world. Like for example, here's a flight in December from Denver over to Haneda in Tokyo, Japan. It's 115,000 points per person one way in business class, and it does go through Paris. Total travel time is about 24 hours, taxes and fees are about $450, but they do have pretty good availability to get to Asia using the Flying Blue program. Could you use this for getting over to Oceania? So New Zealand or Australia or the South Pacific? You can. The best route for this, if you're using Flying Blue, is to get from Los Angeles over to Tahiti. The sweet spot is not that sweet right now. It's 113.5 thousand points. We've seen it for a lot lower, but if you're trying to use Flying Blue points to get over to the South Pacific, this is the main route that people tend to use it for. Now let's compare that with the region versatility of Emirates. So we saw that there are some pretty good Fifth Freedom flights over to Europe, but how about Latin America? There is a Fifth Freedom flight with Emirates for this too. It goes from Miami over to Bogota. It's 52.5 thousand points in business class or 60,000 points with Emirates first class. So this is a pretty good sweet spot if you want to fly down to Colombia. How about if you wanted to fly into Africa? It's doable with Emirates. So here on Seats.aero, there's a lot of different routes from JFK over into Uganda. It's 138,000 points per person one way, which is a little bit steep. It's more than you would be paying to fly Air France down to Kenya, which is usually about 110,000 points per person one way. But because Dubai is pretty well centered in the middle of the world, you can get into Africa through here. Whenever we're booking clients' flights to get to African safaris and using Emirates, oftentimes we do need to do this in two transactions, one into Dubai and then a separate one from Dubai into Africa. And the number of miles required to do all of that can add up, but it's doable. Could you use Emirates to fly into Asia? Depending on how you define Asia, yes. So obviously Emirates is headquartered in Dubai. There's tons of flights in and out of Dubai, but they are pretty expensive. A lot of the flights shown here from Miami over to Dubai, it's 138,000 points per person one way in business class, or 163.5 thousand points in first class. Historically, there have been a lot of other ways to book this for cheaper, like for example with Air Canada, but since the Emirates hub is Dubai in the Middle East, there is plenty of availability to book that. If you want to go into the Far East, it's a little bit trickier. It is doable, but it does require a lot of points. For example, you can fly Dallas over to Singapore. Through Dubai with Emirates, it's going to cost 167.5 thousand points. So with that, I would rather just book with something like Singapore Airlines. But the nice thing about Emirates is you can oftentimes piece together different Emirates routes that don't have to go all the way from North America. For example, if you want to do some country hopping within the Middle East, or you want to go between just Thailand and Dubai, or you want to go between Egypt and Dubai, there's tons of sweet spots with Emirates when North America is not involved in the routing as well. And lastly, can you use Emirates to fly into Australia, New Zealand, or other places in Oceania? Short answer, I would not do it. This is not where you should be using your Emirates points. There's so many other programs that you can use for this sweet spot. So if you're trying to maximize Emirates points, I would not use it for a trip to Australia or New Zealand. All right, so that takes care of region versatility. But when we talk about sweet spots, I don't think the discussion would be complete without talking about if you can book first class and how you would do that. So let's start with Air France. There are currently a lot of stories circulating about the new Air France La Première first class cabin that they've just released. It looks absolutely beautiful, super luxurious, very difficult to book on points. In order to book Air France La Première, you would need to have platinum status in order to see any award availability on their calendar. This is very difficult for Americans to do. It's a bit easier for Canadians because they do have a status match that lets you get to Flying Blue Platinum. Or if you have British Airways status, you can status match from there as well. But when I'm searching Seats.aero for Air France availability in first class from North America to anywhere for the entire year, even just one seat, it is not really doable. Compare that to Emirates, where if you wanted to fly from North America to anywhere in first class, there is plenty of availability on that Miami to Bogota route. It's only 60,000 points. It's a pretty short flight. It's only 3.5 hours, but if you just want to experience a little bit of Emirates first class, get your swag, try the Dom Perignon, try the caviar, all of that is available here. It is operated by the Boeing 777 rather than the A380, so there's no shower on the plane, but you still get most of the rest of the experience. But the sweetest of sweet spots with Emirates, I would say, is going to be the Game Changer. If you want to fly this from the United States, your best bet is going to be to position from Chicago. So here you would be flying from Chicago over to Dubai in first class, and it's going to cost 163.5 thousand points. You also want to confirm that this is going to be on the Boeing 777 Game Changer plane. If you're not familiar with the Game Changer, I would recommend looking up some different flight reviews of it on YouTube. It is currently, I think, the most luxurious first class experience that is available to book on points, outside of something like the Etihad Residence, which is very, very difficult to find availability for. And if you wanted to book this kind of flight, the retail value to fly from Chicago to Dubai in Emirates first class on one of these dates where Seats.aero says there's availability is about $15,000. So instead of paying that much, you could instead pay 163.5 thousand points plus a pretty hefty $840 in taxes and fees. And when we calculate out the cents per point for that booking, it's still really high. You're still looking at 8 or 9 cents per point if you take $15,000 minus $840 in taxes and fees divided by 163.5 thousand points. So with everything we've gone over here, let me know in the comments which one you would rather book through. Would you prefer to move your points over to Air France KLM Flying Blue, which will often have great availability for families? They also have 25% discounts when booking with points for kids ages 2 through 11. Lots of sweet spots into Europe, into Asia, into Africa, and the ability to transfer over from any of the different flexible points programs. Or would you rather move your points over to Emirates to fly something luxurious like the Emirates Game Changer or first class? Those seats will oftentimes only have one seat available to book with points, but with Emirates Business Class, you can oftentimes book for a large family as well. And all 5 currencies of the flexible award transfer partners will go to Emirates as well. So let me know in the comments which one you think is the best loyalty program, or if there's something on this chart that you think is a better loyalty program than anything we've gone over in this video as well. I hope you found these tutorials useful. Let me know in the comments what program you think is the best, and if there are any other programs that I should have included in this video. And if you like this video, I think you will enjoy this video next.